let's talk about what you have in this year, this program, this year 2020. Of course, do not follow my resolutions. My 2020 resolution is to finish something that I didn't finish in 2019. Okay, because I also didn't finish it in 2018. I wanted to do it in 2017, and it's go a long way because I actually said it in 2014. Wow. So my resolution is still the same, actually. Not very much love, yeah, I know, I understand. So crispy. I don't like the guy, even though she said that I'm her mentor, but not the mentor of the crispiness in the jokes. Jokes
not the mentor.
Okay.
Now I know where the crispiness comes from.
Yeah, okay. It's basically because I've been joining Toastmasters since like 6 months, yeah. 6 months of absence. So my aim speech today is about drafting your speech. But first thing first, in this room I only know like 5 or 6 of you. 5 or 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. Okay. Which I believe that at least you have scrapped your speech or draft your speech for at least once. Either it is for your speech project or either it is for competition or the contest. Anyone here are still soon to be Toastmasters? Raise your hand. Really?
Come on.
Really?
You
Still?
join.
The after is you join.
Toastmasters.
Yeah.
So raise your hands. Right hand.
Raise your hands.
Okay. So thank you. Have you ever think what if, and what if? Yeah. What if in 2020 I perform in a stage and I have a lot of audience that actually hear my story or my speech? And the good things from that, at the end of the speech, you won a trophy, right? Okay. So that's the reason why, because Toastmasters always have a contest season, and the contest season are coming up on February, maybe.
Yeah, February 5th.
February 5th for our club, yeah. Spoiler alert, I'm not competing, yeah. So all of you are eligible for competing as a contestant if you already a member. Still have one. Okay, so drafting your speech, let's see. Of course, as a Toastmasters, you are a speaker, right? So as a speaker, you need to look deeper and what's inside to you. Let me give you an example. The first example is from, okay, this guy, Peter, yeah. So this might happen. Yeah. Yes, this is the survivor guy. In any occasion, I delivered speech based on what's popped in my mind.
Just like you.
Yeah, you did that in table topic. Yeah, and then in table topic there will be, of course, a table topic speech contest. Yeah. So this is any occasion I delivered speech based on what's popped in my mind. The first phrase is in any occasion. But that means if you join a contest, it could be what's popped in your mind is what is going to be your speech. Second one, also from the survivor guy. If you know it. I know what I have to deliver. I even rehearsed for it. I just don't write it and stick to what's in my head. Okay? Just like photo touch number 2. Yeah?
Just like you, Praw.
Just like me recently. But if you actually consider or maybe notice that I used to be like this girl. No, I'm not a girl. So what's coming in my head needs to be written down somewhere. And I need to write before I speak and rehearse before I deliver.
Yeah, just like me.
Yeah, some of you are still in that point, and I was in her position too. But that means every time that I want to join a contest, I need to write it down, rehearse, and then make up some things in the speech itself, and then until I gain my confidence to deliver. Now, along the way, there are so many speeches that I've been through so many categories of speeches. That's why for this year, I'm giving it to you. Yeah, aka malas. Yeah. Okay. So which side are you? Are you Peter? Are you Eric? Or are you Karen? So let's see the results. Probably the expected results. Yeah. The expected results from Peter. you'll survive in a meeting if there is no speaker. Like that means if you are in a meeting and there is no speaker, then you can do the impromptu. Yeah? And then second one is like Eric. Surviving delivering speech, though probably it's not that everything. The purpose is not to awe the audience, but actually more like to perform, just to deliver speech. And what about Kara? Yeah. Karaoke will perform, and it's not that in just okay speech. Yeah. Karaoke will perform, and it's not that just okay. Now, dive into the speech contest. Do you have a vision of you after the speech delivery? Let's ask Hans first. Yeah. You just deliver a speech. What is your vision after you deliver a speech?
Applause.
Applause. And you might want to have a good feedback, good evaluation, not only applause. But you might consider what should I write in a speech, especially what should I write in a speech for a speech contest.
Yes.
Yes? Yes. Okay. So, do you think this is enough? Of course not. Yeah, the animation comes first.
No. A true feeling.
Yeah, true feelings.
That is too much.
If you think that this is, this is too much, this is very much to talk in one speech, but that's the bitter truth. Yeah, that's the bitter truth, because the opening, body, and conclusion as the basic of a speech, it's not enough for a speech contest. Yeah, you can see there's a punchline, jokes, connection words, gesture, conclusion, and everything in here. Even titles, stances, anyone know stances? Yeah. Stances now? Stances.
So like stance.
Stances. What about title? Okay. So, I'm going to share you one of my drafts. There are two versions of the draft. One like on construction draft, and the other one is the already ready to deliver draft. Yeah. Let's look. Okay. So, by the way, in a speech contest, it has to be 5 to 7 minutes, or approximately 500 to 700 words. Yeah. If one might know this speech.
I know that.
Yeah. I delivered it probably in 2017.
2017 or 16? 15,
No,
15.
no, 17. This is my speech.
15. No, 15 at
17.
Madrid Kota.
17. No.
15.
Okay, so the title is How. Yeah. Any guess what is this speech talk about?
How?
How? Personal songs, small songs.
That's how you so much.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to think about out of the box that a speech could be something that's very motivating. However, let's not it very general or cliche. So the message of the speech is actually in the bottom of the part after I gave some stories with transitions, with jokes and anything else. And I'm talking about you as a person need to share how to get your achievements, not only to show what. So it's not show the what, but actually it's share the how. Yeah. Yeah, actually it's from personal experience. Yeah. So this is an on construction graph. This is what I usually did. Type, and type, and actually type in the form of opening, body, and conclusion. And after that, I put some makeup on that speech. Yeah. How? Yeah, by putting some notes, and also putting that everything that I mentioned before, like jokes, transitions, how do I stand, how my gestures, yeah. And after everything is written down in the draft, then it is my time to rehearse. While actually in rehearse, there could be some changes also, because it is based on my personal, feeling that atmosphere, whether I actually comfortable to deliver it in that way or not. Yeah. Now, this is how speech. Yeah. I delivered it probably in the division level, if I'm not mistaken. Still in, at the time, still in Jakarta. So, let's see. There are still several Indonesian words, yeah, because this is still on construction speech. If you can see, this is part that I only use two lines of opinion, yeah, because the transition is here, Toastmasters, Judges, and my role models. You might notice that in the previous presentation there are briefings. Briefings is also important for the speech contest. I greet the audience as role models. Have you ever thought about how would you greet your audience? For Toastmasters, Judges, and everything else, yeah, it's up to you based on your speech. And then, starting to the story, yeah, this is story. Now, in the story, put it in the several characters. The first person, second person, is third person. This is also to compare myself and to actually highlight the problem that I have in the speech in the form of stories. And then there are also some revelation in this part, especially revelation. And still, because this is still in the on constructions, several that I highlighted in those different colors. It means that probably still need to work more in the speech itself. And then the other part, usually in the page number 2, is the revelation. Revelation also part when it comes to conclusions, and also how that my problems get solved. And then closing it with a simple conclusion statement. Now, let's move to the jobs that are actually more ready to deliver, yeah? Get lost. Yes, no one ever heard about this issue, especially the one in this room. Okay, so a different part is, this is the opening. It is longer than the previous one. And then this is the transitions, and it started to have a story. Started to have a story until probably this one. Yeah. Now, the tricky part is, if you're done into stories, then you will have what is transitions, conversations with about transitions, jokes. I put it jokes, and the reaction of the jokes, of course, still jokes, last jokes. So usually jokes is not only one, yeah, but they actually could be the power of 3. Yeah? Jokes, still jokes, and last joke. And transition 1, throwing problem. Throwing problem is to acknowledge that I have a problem and the audience needs to know. Because if audience doesn't know the problem, then what would be the message that I put there? And then jokes and replaying, and then start to have a solution 1. Circling. Circling is the tricky part. Circling is the part where drafting is very important, because in the circle, sometimes I try to recall back what I have mentioned before in the several minutes ago. Like for example, if I deliver it in the 5th minute, then I'm going to call something that I delivered in the 1st minutes. What is the purpose? So the audience could actually get the circle. Yeah, it's like a cycle. And yeah, last but not least, also getting into the solving problems, which I deliver in the flow of spirit, and then revelation of the problem, and then also transitions to conclusion. Last but not least, motivation part, which I usually memorize it word by word. Yeah? Because in the motivation part is actually the part that you can get a very high score in the speech contest. Yeah? And that's it. Close it with the closing. Now, if you might think, how can I start to write a speech? First thing first, yeah. All of you have stories or experience to share. Okay, anything, as long as it's not racist or as long as it's not sexist or anything. not Sarah. But all of you have experience. And what type of story that you could deliver? Well, it's actually a story that have a message or meaning, and also the story that could have a punch when you, get back, or not get up, yeah. Get up from the problem that you solved. Like you failed, and then you get up, failed, and then you get up, yeah. And then, after you select the stories, then you can start to draft. Okay, and to make sure that stories also have a limitation 500 to 700 words for the effective 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, some of you might never draft a speech. Am I right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think it's one of the best way is to join Toastmasters and then try to start a project, or at least try to draft a speech. Yeah, at least for one speech. Could be as a webinars. Probably some of you are a blogger, yeah, love to write or type in the blog post or in the Instagram captions, yeah. You could actually practice also, yeah. But trust me, it's a different atmosphere that you felt when you draft a speech. Okay, do I still have time?
Yes.
Okay, what about question and answers? Q&A sessions? 4 more minutes here.
So that's for international speech contest. How about if we want to draft our speech in our mind during the impromptu speech?
The limit table
Topics.
Okay. The table topic speech contest is also tricky, yeah. But that doesn't mean, even though it is impromptu, that doesn't mean that I'm going to have no preparation in table topic speech contest. That is a wrong paradigm, because it is actually could be prepared also. You can expect the theme or the topic that the masters ask to you or give to you. Yeah, the topic is gonna be very general, like I said before. You fell and then you get up, or probably your relationship with the others, your friendship, or maybe something like social connection with others. What else? Sometimes it's tricky. It's like an analogy, yeah. Analogy already in the form of questions, like talking about your vision, talking about your future. So basically, you kind of like collect that small stories for each of the theme, and then when you have that one stories, and then when the masters give the questions to you, you can this is going with my stories, and then you can deliver it. Okay? Yeah. From Iwan, my friend.
Thank you, Elder, for this.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So we belong here. So also this question is also asked for remember, and sometimes it's sometimes confuse me a lot for many times, because strong speech sometimes can be judged by the good closing or good opening, and how we may create a good opening.
Good opening and good conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've mentioned the circle. Yeah. So in my experience drafting a speech, I always want the audience. One of my vision. Yeah, I always want the audience to remember what is the first part of my speech and also what is the last part of my speech. That's why I'm doing a circle. Like for example, try to find a keyword that you mentioned in the first two sentences. The first two sentences, there are some keywords, and then you recall that back in your conclusion. Like for example, you have the keyword regard. Yeah. In the opening, you will say that blah 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 regard, and then in the conclusion, or maybe before you close your speech, you also say regard. So it's like, this is the word that actually mentioned in the first part. So it's like, yeah, you're going through and then you go back to the first part. Yeah, so words of choices, your choice of words is very important, because the highlighted keyword could be memorized by the audience. Okay? Yeah?
In drafting our speech, where do we put our main idea or thesis or in drafting our speech? So is it at the beginning or at the end, or
Okay.
middle of the
So main ID, okay, this is tricky. Yeah. Some speakers put the main ID even in the title. Even in the title. Yeah. But I rarely do that because I want my main ID, it's like surprise in the box. So usually I put it in the body of speech. But then emphasize that in terms of analogy in the conclusion part. Yeah. So in my speech before, it's about sharing the how we get the achievements. In the story is my problem is I never found a person that share how to get the achievements. But instead, I always find lots of people that share what are the things that they have achieved. Yeah. So that's the tricky part. But then in the conclusion part, in the motivating way, I usually give the engage them. If you want to share what is your achievement, don't forget to share how to achieve them. So the other people who have the same dreams like you will also get their achievements. Okay? Yep.
Okay,
Fine.
thanks.
Last question.
Oh, last questions.
Yeah, last question.
Oh, last
I mean-
question. Okay, I think there is not a difference between speech by Indonesian or by English. Maybe if this change is used by Indonesian language, I will more speech in front of the audience. But the problem is I can't to share my knowledge, and also I can't to share my my experience because I have enough about a pocket. I don't have pocket more to speak in front of the audience. The solution is how to break it because I want to get out from my comfort zone to speak in front of audience by Indonesian, but I want to make a motivation to my audience by English.
Okay.
How to break it?
How to actually twist it in the
Ah.
form of vocabulary or something?
Okay.
Yeah, the answer is drafting. Simple as. When you draft, you know, you can do the barely typing. Barely typing is you just, what's in your mind, you put it on the computer. And then, after that, you're going to reread that. When you reread that, you know which one the sentence that is not effective or the ineffective sentence. That ineffective sentence, you can cut it into a smaller phrases. Or there are some sentences that you might think this is one phrase long, but it could actually be used into one word. And that's the reason why and that's one of the reason you could, when you're drafting, you could enrich your vocabulary also. Because drafting is part of the explorations of the speech. Okay? Another question and answer will be after the session.